March 15, 2019. Marcus Delacroix had been running Iron Fist Gym for 12 years, the same gym where his best student died. That's exactly why he should have recognized the man who killed him. Jackie Chan walked through those doors at 3:47 p.m., smiled his famous smile, asked for a friendly sparring match. Marcus laughed, thinking it was just another celebrity workout. Then Chan threw his first punch. The stance, the footwork, the exact combination that crushed Tommy Chen's skull 15 years ago in an illegal underground tournament. Marcus had watched the security footage 1,000 times, memorizing every movement of the mystery fighter who vanished after the kill. For 30 seconds, the heavyweight champion stood frozen. In those 3 seconds that followed, everything Marcus thought he knew about justice, fame, and the man the world called a hero shattered like glass. The cameras were rolling, the crowd was cheering, and Marcus Delacroix was staring at a ghost. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The gym fell silent except for the hum of fluorescent lights and the distant traffic of Nathan Road bleeding through cracked windows. Marcus felt his knees buckle, gripping the ring ropes as Jackie Chan, no, not Jackie Chan, couldn't be Jackie Chan, reset his stance with the fluid precision of a man who had killed before. "You okay, Mike?" Chan's voice carried that familiar warmth from 100 movies, but his eyes had gone cold, calculating. The transformation was subtle enough that the small crowd of gym members and local reporters wouldn't notice, but Marcus saw it, the predator evaluating prey. Blood rushed in Marcus's ears as memories crashed back. Tommy Chen, 22 years old, lightning-fast hands, dreams of turning pro. The kid had begged Marcus to let him fight in the underground tournament. "Just this once, coach. The money could save the gym." Marcus had said yes. 3 minutes later, Tommy was convulsing on a canvas soaked in his own blood while a masked fighter, Chen Wei-Ming they called him, disappeared into the Hong Kong underworld like smoke. "Need a second." Marcus forced his voice steady, buying time to think. His hands trembled as he adjusted the focus mitts, muscle memory from 40 years of training overriding the chaos in his mind. Chan bounced lightly on his feet, that same flowing footwork that had haunted Marcus's nightmares. "Take your time, Sifu. I know you old-timers need to warm up those joints." The casual mockery in that last word, old-timers, sent ice through Marcus's veins. This wasn't Jackie Chan's playful banter. This was something darker, more personal. A camera phone flashed from the crowd. Sarah, his assistant trainer, grinned and gave him a thumbs up from beside the heavy bags. 3 local reporters scribbled notes, already crafting their feel-good stories about Hollywood royalty visiting a struggling gym in Tsim Sha Tsui. None of them understood they were witnessing something else entirely. Marcus stepped forward, raising the mitts. "Show me what you've got." Chan's smile never wavered as he threw a jab-cross combination. The technique was flawless. Not the choreographed movie fighting Marcus expected, but the brutal efficiency of someone who had spent years perfecting the art of inflicting damage. The impact rattled up Marcus's arms. "Nice form," Marcus said, probing. "Where'd you train?" "Peking Opera School doesn't usually cover Western boxing." "Oh, you pick things up over the years." Chan's laugh sounded wrong, hollow. "I've had some private instruction, very exclusive teachers." Another combination, faster this time. The left hook came at the exact angle that had caved in Tommy's temple. Marcus's breath caught, but he forced himself to keep the mitts steady. "You remind me of someone," Marcus said carefully. "Fighter I knew years back, very distinctive style." For just a moment, Chan's mask slipped. Something predatory flickered across his features before the movie star's smile returned. "Really? What was his name?" "Chen Wei-Ming." The name hung in the air like a challenge. Chan's next punch came harder, the mitt cracking against Marcus's palm with enough force to send shockwaves up his shoulder. "Never heard of him," Chan said, but his breathing had changed, controlled, ready. Marcus knew that breathing pattern, had seen it in fighters preparing for war. His own body responded instinctively, shifting into the defensive posture that had carried him through 57 professional fights. The gym around them faded, the chattering crowd, the clicking cameras, the peeling motivational posters. There was only this moment, This recognition, this impossible truth. Funny thing about underground fighting, Marcus continued, his voice dropping low enough that only Chan could hear. Fighters think masks hide their identities, but you can't disguise the way someone moves. Muscle memory doesn't lie. Chan stopped bouncing. The transformation was complete now. Gone was the beloved action star, replaced by something colder, more dangerous. When he spoke, his voice carried the flat menace of a man accustomed to eliminating problems. You're confused, old man. Maybe that gym of yours hit too many heads back in the day. March 23rd, 2004. Warehouse tournament in Kowloon. You killed a kid named Tommy Chen. Marcus's voice was steady now, 15 years of rage crystallizing into perfect clarity. I've been looking for you ever since. The crowd behind them continued their excited chatter, oblivious to the deadly current flowing between the two men. Sarah called out something about getting group photos. A reporter asked about Chan's upcoming movie projects. Chan stepped closer, close enough that Marcus could see the calculation in his eyes. Prove it. It wasn't a denial. It was a threat. Marcus felt the familiar pre-fight calm settling over him, the same stillness that had carried him to 12 championship victories. His hands found their natural guard position, and for the first time in 15 years, the weight of guilt lifted from his shoulders. He was finally going to get answers. 3 rounds, Marcus said quietly. Winner takes all. Chan's smile turned razor sharp. You have no idea what you're getting into. The weight of 15 years pressed down on Marcus like a physical force as he stared into Chan's cold eyes. Behind them, Sarah's voice cut through the tension like a blade through silk. Mr. Chan, the reporters would love to get some action shots of you and Marcus sparring. Her enthusiasm was infectious, drawing excited murmurs from the small crowd. She had no idea she was orchestrating a collision between past and present that could destroy everything Marcus had spent decades building. Marcus forced his shoulders to relax, muscle memory from countless press conferences taking over. Smile for the cameras. Play the part of the grateful gym owner hosting a celebrity visit. Protect what mattered most. Of course, he heard himself say, the words tasting like ash. Always happy to show off for the cameras. But his eyes never left Chan's face, studying the micro-expressions beneath the practiced charm. The slight tightness around the eyes, the way his jaw muscles flexed when he thought no one was looking, the predatory stillness that reminded Marcus of a leopard he'd once seen in a Hong Kong zoo. Beautiful, beloved by visitors, but never forgetting it was built to kill. Sarah bounced on her toes, already reaching for her phone. 26 years old, all energy and optimism. She'd been working at the gym for 3 years without ever asking about the shrine in Marcus's office. The photo of Tommy Chen surrounded by wilted flowers and burning incense. The newspaper clipping he kept in his desk drawer. Young fighter dies in underground tournament. She deserved better than to watch her mentor's world implode on what should have been the gym's biggest publicity win in years. Sarah, Marcus said carefully, why don't you take the reporters upstairs? Show them the trophy case. Tell them about our community programs. Give us a few minutes to warm up properly. Her face fell slightly. But, trust me. Marcus's voice carried the authority of a man who had once commanded respect from the most violent athletes on earth. This will be better with just the cameras rolling. More intimate. Sarah hesitated, then nodded. Come on, everyone. Let me show you where Iron Mike used to plan his championship fights. She began herding the group toward the narrow stairs that led to the office space above, her voice taking on the practiced tone of someone used to giving tours. As their footsteps faded, the gym transformed. Without the buffer of civilian presence, the space felt smaller, more dangerous. The heavy bags hung like silent witnesses. The speed bag platform where Marcus had taught Tommy to perfect his hand-eye coordination seemed to pulse with accusatory energy. Chan's posture shifted subtly, the movie star persona sliding away like a discarded costume. Clever, though I'm not sure privacy will help you. You'd be surprised what 15 years of preparation can accomplish. Marcus moved toward the equipment closet, his hands steady despite the hurricane in his chest. Inside, beneath the spare gloves and mouth guards, lay the manila folder he'd hoped never to open again. Photos from that night, witness statements, medical reports detailing the exact angle and force required to cause Tommy's fatal injuries. You keep evidence? Chan's voice held a note of professional interest. I keep everything. Marcus pulled out a single photograph, grainy, taken from across the warehouse, showing a masked fighter standing over Tommy's motionless form. The stance was unmistakable, burned into Marcus's memory like a brand, including this. Chan glanced at the photo with the casual interest of a man looking at a restaurant menu. Blurry. Could be anyone. Could be. Marcus tucked the photo away. But we both know it isn't. The silence stretched between them, heavy with the weight of unfinished business. Through the windows, Nathan Road hummed with evening traffic. Somewhere out there, people were living ordinary lives, catching buses, buying dinner, calling their families. Marcus envied them their ignorance. You want to know the funny thing? Marcus's voice was barely above a whisper. Part of me always hoped I was wrong, that the real Chen Wei-ming was rotting in some mainland prison or dead in an alley somewhere. Because if I was right, he gestured at the empty gym, the peeling paint, the outdated equipment held together with duct tape and stubbornness. This place, Sarah, the kids who train here, they all become casualties. They already are, Chan said with casual brutality. They just don't know it yet. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow, not because of their cruelty, but because of their honesty. For 15 years, he'd built walls around the people he cared about, never fully trusting, never fully connecting, always holding back pieces of himself. The guilt had poisoned everything it touched. Above them, Sarah's laughter drifted down through the ceiling. She was probably showing off the photo of Marcus's first championship fight, telling the story of how a kid from New Orleans had conquered the heavyweight division. She believed in the legend because she'd never seen the monster underneath. Marcus looked around the gym one last time, memorizing details he might never see again. The faded motivational posters, the ring where he'd taught hundreds of young fighters to protect themselves, the heavy bag with Tommy's name still written in fading marker near the bottom. 3 rounds, he said again, this time meaning it. Chan's smile was pure winter. Winner takes all. The basement door exploded open with a crash that sent dust raining from the ceiling beams. Marcus spun toward the sound, his fighter's instincts screaming danger, but stopped cold when he saw who stumbled through the doorway. Detective Inspector Liu Wei-ming of the Hong Kong Police Force stood in the entrance, his usually immaculate uniform disheveled, his face pale as cemetery marble. Blood trickled from a cut above his left eye, and his service weapon hung loose in his trembling hand. Marcus, Liu gasped, his eyes wild with something Marcus had never seen in 15 years of friendship, pure animal terror. You have to get out, now. Behind him, Chan's laugh was soft and appreciative. Well, well, the family reunion I've been waiting for. The word family hit Marcus like a sledgehammer to the chest. Liu's eyes found Chan's face, and the detective's weapon clattered to the concrete floor as his legs gave out entirely. Ji, Liu whispered in Mandarin, Big Brother. The truth detonated in Marcus's mind with the force of a freight train. Not just recognition, but comprehension. Liu Wei-ming, Chen Wei-ming. The names had been there all along, hidden in plain sight, separated by nothing more than a different romanization of Chinese characters. Your brothers, Marcus breathed, the words tasting like bile. Chen stepped toward the broken detective with predatory grace. Tell him, little brother. Tell him how you set up that tournament. How you gave me the location, the security details, the list of fighters who'd be there. Liu's voice was barely audible. He said no one would get seriously hurt, just some underground fights to blow off steam. I was young, stupid, I needed money for university. And when your friend's student died, Chen continued, his voice a caress of cruelty, who do you think covered it up? Who made sure the investigation went nowhere? Who protected his dear GE from consequences? Marcus felt the floor tilting beneath his feet. 15 years of failed investigations. Evidence that disappeared. Witnesses who suddenly developed amnesia or left Hong Kong entirely. He'd blamed corruption, incompetence, the labyrinthine bureaucracy of handover-era policing. But it had been Liu, his friend Liu, who'd shared drinks and war stories, who'd helped Marcus navigate the immigration process, who'd stood as best man at Marcus's wedding to Sarah's predecessor. Every dead end, Marcus said, his voice hollow. Every missing file. Every time you told me to let it go, move on, focus on the living. I was protecting you. Lou's anguish was raw, desperate. Do you know what my brother is capable of? What he's done since that night? Marcus, he's not just a killer. He's something worse. He's untouchable. Chen's smile was radiant with malice. Show him, Lou. Show him the file you brought. With shaking hands, Lou reached into his jacket and withdrew a manila envelope thick with documents. The papers scattered across the concrete as he dropped them. Photographs, police reports, medical examiner's findings, all bearing dates from the past 15 years. Marcus picked up the nearest photo and immediately wished he hadn't. A young woman, maybe 25, her neck twisted at an impossible angle. The file header read, "Accident on set, stuntwoman fatality, case closed." Another photo. A martial arts instructor in Macau, found dead in his studio. Heart attack, natural causes, case closed. A third. A former underground fighter turned construction worker, discovered at the bottom of a building shaft. Workplace accident, case closed. 11 deaths, Chen said conversationally. All people who were at that tournament. All potential witnesses to my little indiscretion with your student. Marcus's hands shook as he rifled through the evidence. Each file was stamped with official seals, signed by Liu's colleagues, processed through proper channels. Clean, professional, untouchable. You've been cleaning up after him for 15 years, Marcus said to Liu, understanding flooding through him like ice water. Every person who might have seen his face might have recognized his fighting style. I had to, Liu sobbed. He's my brother. And if his real identity ever came out, if the world knew that Jackie Chan is, Chen corrected gently. Present tense, little brother. Though I admit the performance has been exhausting. Do you know how difficult it is to pretend to be beloved? To smile and bow and sign autographs when all you want to do is show them what you really are? Above them, Sarah's voice called down. Marcus, is everything okay down there? We heard a noise. The three men froze. In the sudden silence, Marcus could hear the reporters shuffling around upstairs, probably looking for an excuse to come back down and capture more footage. Chen's eyes lit up with predatory interest. How lovely. More witnesses to clean up. And in that moment, Marcus understood with crystalline clarity that his old life, whatever remained of it, was over. The man he'd called friend was a co-conspirator. The icon the world adored was a serial killer, and everyone he cared about was now a target. The past hadn't just returned, it had devoured the present whole. Marcus's mind reeled, fragments of 15 years reassembling into a horrifying mosaic. Every dinner with Liu, every case update that led nowhere. Every time his friend had steered him away from certain leads, certain questions. The detective's concerned face when Marcus would disappear for weeks, chasing shadows across mainland China. Let the dead rest, my friend. You're only hurting yourself. Sarah, everything's fine, Marcus called up, his voice somehow steady despite the earthquake in his chest. Just showing Mr. Chan some vintage equipment. Liu scrambled for his fallen weapon, but Chen's foot pinned his wrist to the concrete with casual brutality. Now, little brother. We're all friends here. Marcus, Liu gasped, tears streaming down his face. You have to understand. After that first tournament, I tried to stop him. I transferred to Organized Crime Division specifically to hunt him down, but he was already gone. The Chen Wei-Ming identity disappeared completely, and Jackie Chan was born, Marcus said, the pieces clicking into place with sickening precision. When did you realize? 3 years later, I was working a case in Central. Saw him filming a movie. Something about his movement. Liu's voice cracked. I followed him home that night, confronted him. Chen's laugh was soft, nostalgic. Such a touching reunion. Little Wei Ming, all grown up in his police uniform trying to arrest his big brother. I was almost proud. The blood on Liu's face wasn't from falling, Marcus realized. It was from tonight, recent, fresh. What did you do? Marcus's question was directed at Chen, but his eyes stayed on his friend. former friend, watching the man he'd trusted crumble under the weight of 15 years of complicity. Gave him a choice, Chen said simply. Family loyalty or justice, blood or badges. His foot pressed harder against Lu's wrist, drawing a whimper. He chose wisely. Above them, footsteps moved across the office floor. Sarah's voice, muffled but cheerful, explaining the gym's history to the reporters. The sound felt like it was coming from another world, a clean, innocent place where action stars were heroes and policemen caught bad guys and boxing gyms were refuges, not crime scenes waiting to happen. Marcus tried to calculate odds, distances, escape routes. The basement had one exit, currently blocked by Chen. Lu's weapon lay useless under the killer's foot. Upstairs, Sarah and 3 reporters remained oblivious to the gathering storm below them. You can't kill all of them, Marcus said quietly. Not even you are that good. Oh, Marcus. Chen's smile was genuine now, warm with anticipation. You still don't understand what I've become. The resources at my disposal, the reach of Jackie Chan's influence. He pulled out his phone, scrolled to a contact and hit speaker. The line rang twice before a crisp British voice answered. Chan Film Security, this is Henderson. Evening, James. I need a standard containment protocol at the Iron Dragon Gym in Tsim Sha Tsui. Make it look like a gas leak. Ensure no witnesses reach the street. Copy that, sir. ETA, 12 minutes. Chen ended the call and tucked the phone away. Private security firm, very discreet. They handle all the studio's sensitive situations. Lu's sobs echoed off the basement walls. Marcus, I'm sorry. God, I'm so fucking sorry. I thought I could control it, limit the damage. 11 people, Marcus said, his voice flat with shock. 11 people died because you were afraid to face the truth about your brother. 12, Chen corrected cheerfully. Tommy makes 12. Though really, Lu's killed more people than I have. He just used paperwork instead of fists. The casual mathematics of murder. Marcus felt something fundamental breaking inside him, some basic faith in the order of things. He'd spent 40 years in a brutal sport, seen men beaten unconscious, watched careers end in pools of blood and shattered dreams. But there had always been rules. Referees, doctors, lines that couldn't be crossed. This was something else. This was the abyss looking back. Sarah's going to wonder where I am, Marcus said, grasping for anything that might buy time. She'll come looking. In about 8 minutes, Sarah's going to smell gas and evacuate the building with the reporters. Very responsible of her. Unfortunately, there will be a tragic explosion just as they reach the street. Chen's voice held the practiced sympathy of a man who delivered many eulogies. Hong Kong's beloved action star will die a hero, trying to rescue his new friend from the basement. And the real story dies with us. Liu's prepared a complete file blaming you for all 12 deaths. Deranged former champion, obsessed with revenge, finally snapping when confronted with evidence of his own students' involvement in underground fighting. Chen's eyes glittered with artistic satisfaction. They'll find drugs in your system. Steroids, brain damage from too many fights. Very tragic, very believable. Marcus looked at his hands, scarred, powerful, still steady despite everything. Weapons that had once commanded respect, now useless against the web of lies and influence that surrounded him. For the first time in 15 years, he was truly afraid. The fear lasted exactly 3 seconds. Then Marcus remembered who he used to be. Lu, he said quietly, his voice cutting through the detective's sobs. How many others knew about that tournament? Lu's head snapped up, confusion replacing despair. What? The underground tournament 15 years ago. How many people knew the location besides you and your brother? Chen's foot pressed harder against Lu's wrist, but Marcus ignored him. He was working something out, a thread of memory that had been nagging at him since Chen's revelation. Maybe 6 people total. The organizers, security, a few high-level bettors. Lu's police training kicked in despite his emotional state. Why? Because Tommy wasn't supposed to be there. The words hung in the basement air like a physical presence. Chen's predatory smile faltered for the first time since entering the gym. Marcus continued, his mind racing through details he'd buried for 15 years. Tommy was fighting in sanctioned amateur tournaments. Clean record, clean fights. He had a scholarship to university, a future outside boxing. He would never have risked it for underground money. "Marcus," Lou whispered, understanding dawning in his eyes. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying someone invited him specifically. Someone who knew he'd be too curious, too confident to turn down a challenge." Marcus's gaze locked on Chen. Someone who needed a witness to die that night. Chen's laugh was sharp, but there was an edge to it now. Paranoid fantasy. The kid was just another fighter looking for easy money. "No." Marcus pulled another photograph from the scattered evidence, one he hadn't seen before. It showed Tommy entering the warehouse, but he wasn't alone. A figure walked beside him, face obscured by shadows. Tommy was set up. The question is why? Above them, Sarah's voice had stopped. The sudden silence made Marcus's skin crawl. Lou struggled to sit up, his policeman's instincts finally overriding his guilt. "Marcus, there's something else, something I never told you about that night." "Shut up," Chen hissed. But Liu was already talking, words tumbling out like water through a broken dam. "Tommy didn't die in the ring. He won his fight. Knocked out his opponent in the second round, clean victory. The crowd was going crazy, this unknown American kid destroying their local champion. Marcus felt the world tilt. Then how? He was killed afterward, in the locker room area. Someone told him Jackie Chan wanted to meet him, congratulate him on the victory." Liu's voice broke. He was so excited, Marcus, a famous action star wanting to shake his hand. The truth hit Marcus like a physical blow. Tommy hadn't died as collateral damage in an underground fight. He'd been executed, deliberately, personally. "You murdered a 19-year-old kid because he won a fight?" Marcus's voice was barely human. Chen shrugged. "I murdered a 19-year-old kid because he saw my face, because he was young and stupid and American and would definitely have recognized me eventually. Because loose ends make me uncomfortable." "But why were you there at all? You were already famous, already successful." "I was bored." Chen's casual tone made the words even more horrifying. "Do you know how tedious it is pretending to be a hero? Pulling punches, choreographing fights, making sure everyone walks away unharmed?" I needed to remember what real violence felt like. The footsteps above had stopped completely now. Marcus strained to hear any sound from upstairs, Sarah's voice, the reporters moving around, anything. The silence was absolute. Chen noticed his attention and smiled. "My security team is very efficient. Gas leak protocols require immediate evacuation, but sometimes people resist leaving. Sometimes they need encouragement." "You're insane." But even as Marcus said it, he realized how inadequate the word was. This wasn't insanity. This was something colder, more calculating. A predator who had perfected the art of wearing a human mask. "I'm thorough," Chen corrected. 15 years of cleaning up witnesses, building the perfect cover identity, cultivating relationships with police, government officials, studio executives. Do you know how many people would die to protect Jackie Chan's reputation? How many careers depend on my continued success? Lou was staring at his brother with dawning horror. "Jesus Christ, this isn't about covering up one murder anymore. You're using Tommy's death as a baseline. Everyone who dies now, you blame on Marcus's obsession with finding his student's killer. Very good, little brother. I always said you were the smart one." Chen pulled out a small device that looked like a garage door opener. "Speaking of which, we're approaching the dramatic climax. Time for the grieving mentor to confront his student's true killer." He pressed the button. Somewhere above them, Marcus heard the soft hiss of gas beginning to fill the building. In 8 minutes, maybe less, this entire block would be a crater, and Sarah was still upstairs. Marcus looked at the photos scattered around his feet. 12 people dead to protect one man's secret. 12 families destroyed. 12 lives erased so that the world could continue believing in heroes. The old Marcus might have tried negotiation, might have looked for a peaceful solution, but the old Marcus had never seen evil wearing such a perfect mask. Marcus lunged forward, but not at Chen. Instead, he grabbed Lou's collar and hauled the broken detective to his feet with one violent motion. "The security footage," Marcus snarled. his face inches from Lou's. "From that night 15 years ago. You told me it was corrupted, unusable. But you kept it, didn't you?" Lou's eyes went wide with terror, not at Marcus's grip, but at the understanding spreading across his features. "Marcus, don't—" "You kept it because it showed something impossible. Something that would have destroyed your brother's career instantly." Marcus shook him hard enough to rattle teeth. It showed Jackie Chan entering that warehouse 2 hours before the tournament even started. Chen's predatory calm cracked like ice under pressure. "You're fishing, grasping at—" "Am I?" Marcus released Lou and spun to face the killer. "Because I remember now. I remember Tommy calling me that afternoon, excited about meeting his hero. He said someone from Jackie Chan's people had contacted him directly, invited him to a special exhibition match, promised him a chance to spar with the legend himself." The gas hiss above them grew louder, more urgent. Chen glanced at his watch, but his supreme confidence was wavering. Ancient history. The boy is dead, and soon the boy recorded the phone call. The words dropped into the basement like a stone into still water. Everything stopped. Chen's threats, Liu's sobbing, even the sound of settling building above them. Marcus felt the truth crystallizing around them like ice, beautiful and deadly. "Tommy recorded everything," Marcus continued, his voice gaining strength with each revelation. "Every training session, every fight, every phone call. He was making a documentary about training with a legendary boxer, planning to use it for his film school applications. I found hours of footage after he died, but I was so destroyed by grief I never watched most of it." Lou's face had gone corpse pale. "Marcus, if that recording still exists—" "It shows Jackie Chan personally recruiting my student for what he thought was a legitimate sparring session. Voice analysis would prove it. Phone records would confirm it. The great humanitarian action star, deliberately luring a teenager to his death." Marcus smiled, and it was uglier than anything Chen had produced. How many careers depend on Jackie Chan's reputation? How many people would kill to protect it? "You just told me the answer." Chen's mask finally slipped completely. What emerged underneath wasn't human. It was something that had learned to mimic human expressions without understanding their meaning. "Where is the recording?" "Safe. Multiple copies, multiple locations. Lawyers have instructions to release everything if I die unexpectedly." Marcus was lying, but the lie felt more real than anything else in his life. "Did you really think I'd carry the only evidence of my student's murder around in my pocket for 15 years? The device in Chen's hand trembled slightly. For the first time since entering the gym, he looked uncertain. "You're bluffing. If you had proof, you would have used it years ago." "I had proof of a murder. I didn't have proof of Jackie Chan committing it." Marcus stepped closer, close enough to smell the expensive cologne, the faint scent of stage makeup. "But I do now. Thanks to your brother's detailed files, your own confession, and this lovely recorded conversation I've been streaming to my lawyer's secure server since you first opened your mouth." Liu's head snapped up. "What recording?" Marcus tapped his chest, where a small device gleamed through his torn shirt. Not a wire, but Sarah's digital recorder, the one she'd clipped to his collar for the charity interview. "Still running, still broadcasting through the gym's wireless network to the cloud storage account she'd set up. Sarah works in digital media," Marcus said conversationally. "Automatic backup, real-time upload, redundant storage. Very thorough, very professional." He smiled at Chen's horrified expression. "She wanted to make sure we didn't lose any of tonight's interview footage. Such attention to detail." Chen raised his hand to strike, pure rage overwhelming his calculated composure. "You fucking—" "One more word, and I trigger immediate release to every major news outlet in Asia." Marcus held up his phone, thumb hovering over the screen. "I wonder how your security team will explain murdering a building full of people when the world already knows their employer is a serial killer?" The silence stretched like a wire under tension. Above them, the gas continued to hiss, but Chen's finger had frozen over his detonator. 15 years. Marcus said quietly. 15 years you've been the hunter, we've been the prey. But you made one crucial mistake tonight." "What mistake?" Chen's voice was barely controlled fury. Told me the truth. Marcus's smile was serene, peaceful, the expression of a man finally understanding his purpose. And the truth, as it turns out, really will set us all free. Chen's arrogance had become his weakness. His need to gloat, to explain his superiority, to make his victims understand their helplessness before he destroyed them. It had given Marcus the one weapon that could cut through 15 years of lies and influence. The truth. Recorded, uploaded, unstoppable. The hunter had become the hunted. The standoff stretched between them like a taut wire, each man calculating odds and outcomes in the growing hiss of gas above. Marcus kept his thumb poised over his phone, watching Chen's face cycle through expressions, rage, calculation, and something that might have been respect. "You know this doesn't end here," Chen said finally, his voice regaining some of its earlier smoothness. "Even if your little recording reaches the press, I have resources you can't imagine. Lawyers who could bury this story in legal proceedings for decades. Publicists who've made worse scandals disappear overnight. Maybe." Marcus's smile never wavered. "But can you make 12 bodies disappear? Can you explain away Detective Liu's 15-year cover-up? Can you convince the world that a beloved action star accidentally became a serial killer?" Liu struggled to his feet, blood still trickling from his nose. "The other families," he whispered, understanding dawning in his eyes. "If this comes out, they'll finally know what really happened to their sons, their brothers." "Shut up," Chen snapped, but his authority was fracturing. The perfect mask he'd worn for 15 years was developing cracks, and something monstrous showed through each fissure. Marcus felt the weight of those 12 lives pressing down on him. Not just Tommy anymore, but all of them. Young fighters who'd made the mistake of winning when they should have lost, of seeing faces they shouldn't have seen, of being in the wrong place when a predator needed fresh prey. "You want to know the real tragedy?" Marcus asked, his voice cutting through the basement's oppressive atmosphere. "You were already perfect at what you did. Jackie Chan's stunts, the way you moved, the precision of every choreographed fight, that was all real skill. You could have been remembered as the greatest action star in history." "I will be remembered that way," Chen replied, but uncertainty flickered in his eyes. "This changes nothing. One scandal properly managed—" "This isn't a scandal." The words came from Sarah's voice, floating down through the building's ventilation system. Marcus's blood turned to ice as he realized she was speaking through the gym's PA system, her voice carrying the professional clarity of a seasoned broadcaster. "This is a confession to 12 counts of first-degree murder, broadcast live to news outlets across 3 continents. Chen's face went white. "That's impossible. My security team—" "Your security team never made it past the front door," Sarah continued, her voice steady despite the danger she had to know she was in. "Funny thing about gas leaks, they require immediate police response. Detective Liu's colleagues are very thorough when protecting civilians." Liu straightened, his police training overriding 15 years of guilt and fear. "I called it in," he said quietly. "While you were gloating about your perfect plan, I activated my emergency beacon. Every cop in Simshat Sui is surrounding this building. You lying piece of—" Chen lunged for Liu, but Marcus intercepted him, 40 years of boxing instinct driving his fist into the killer's solar plexus. Chen doubled over, gasping, the detonator skittering across the basement floor. "The real question," Marcus said, standing over the fallen killer, "is what happens now. Do you surrender quietly, or do we let Hong Kong's finest drag Jackie Chan out in handcuffs while the cameras roll?" Chen looked up from the floor, and for a moment his expression was almost human, defeated, exhausted, stripped of pretense. "You don't understand what you've done. The studio, the charities, the thousands of people whose livelihoods depend on Jackie Chan's image. You've destroyed more than just me." "No," Marcus replied firmly. "You destroyed all of that the moment you decided 12 lives were acceptable collateral damage for your entertainment." Above them, footsteps echoed through the building. Heavy, organized, the sound of law enforcement taking control. Sarah's voice continued broadcasting, reading from what Marcus realized must be Liu's files, detailing each murder with clinical precision. Liu picked up the detonator, staring at it with disgust before crushing it under his heel. "It's over, Wei Ming. It's finally over." Chen, Wei Ming closed his eyes as the footsteps grew closer. When he opened them again, the predator was gone, replaced by something smaller and infinitely more pathetic. "I just wanted to feel alive," he whispered. "The movies, the stunts, the adoration, none of it was real. But the killing, that was real." "So was Tommy," Marcus said softly. "So were all of them. They were 19, 20, 21 years old. They had futures, dreams, people who loved them. And you erased them for a momentary thrill." The basement door burst open, flooding the space with light and armed officers. In the chaos that followed, shouts, weapons drawn, the methodical process of arrest, Marcus found himself thinking about Tommy's last phone call, the excitement in his young voice about meeting his hero. The boy had died believing in something good, something pure. Maybe that was enough. As the tactical officers secured Chen Wei Ming in restraints, Marcus watched something extraordinary happen. The man who had terrorized him for 15 years, first as a phantom, then as an impossible truth, was being reduced to flesh and blood and handcuffs. The legend of Jackie Chan was dying in real time, replaced by the pathetic reality of a serial killer who had hidden behind the world's love for a hero that never truly existed. "Marcus!" Sarah's voice cut through the controlled chaos as she descended into the basement, her camera crew trailing behind despite the officers' protests. She looked disheveled but determined, her eyes bright with the kind of fierce satisfaction that came from breaking the story of a lifetime. "Are you hurt?" He shook his head, unable to find words. The adrenaline that had sustained him through the confrontation was ebbing, leaving behind an exhaustion that went deeper than bone. Detective Liu stood beside the evidence scattered across the basement floor, photographs of 12 victims, police files, the detritus of 15 years of covered-up murders. His hands shook as he began collecting the materials, and Marcus realized this was the first time Liu had touched that evidence without fear, without the crushing weight of protecting his brother's secret. "I need to call their families," Liu said quietly, his voice thick with emotion he'd suppressed for over a decade. "Tommy's parents, and the others. They deserve to know their sons didn't die for money or pride. They died because they were brave and talented and in the wrong place when a monster needed to feed." Chen, Marcus found he could no longer think of the killer by his stolen name, looked up from where officers were checking his restraints. The transformation was complete now. The charismatic action star was gone, replaced by something that looked small and ordinary and utterly broken. "You think this is justice?" Chen asked, his voice carrying none of its earlier menace. "You think exposing the truth brings them back?" Marcus knelt beside the restrained killer, close enough to see the fear that had replaced predatory confidence. "No," he said simply, "but it means their deaths finally have meaning. Tommy died because he was good enough to win a fight he wasn't supposed to win, and honest enough that you couldn't risk him recognizing you later. He died because you were a coward who couldn't face the possibility that your perfect mask might slip." "I gave the world joy," Chen whispered, and for the first time his voice carried genuine anguish. "Decades of laughter, hope, inspiration, millions of children who grew up believing heroes were real. And you've destroyed all of that for what? Revenge for one stupid boy?" The words hit Marcus like a physical blow, but not in the way Chen intended, because suddenly Marcus understood something that had eluded him for 15 years. "You're wrong," Marcus said, his voice growing stronger with each word. "I haven't destroyed anything. You did that the moment you decided that playing a hero was more important than being one. The Jackie Chan the world loved, that person never existed. It was just a mask worn by a killer." He stood, looking down at the man who had haunted his nightmares. But Tommy existed, and the other 11 boys existed. And their courage, their dreams, their love for their families, that was real. That's what survives this, not your lies. Sarah had been filming throughout the exchange, and Marcus saw her lower the camera with something like reverence. "This is going to change everything," she said quietly. "Not just in Hong Kong, but worldwide. The entertainment industry, the way we think about celebrity, about heroes." "Good," Liu said firmly, sealing the last of the evidence files. "Maybe it's time we stopped expecting our heroes to be perfect, and started demanding they be honest." The officers began moving Chen toward the stairs, but the killer stopped, turning back to Marcus with one final desperate gambit. "You know what happens next? Conspiracy theories. People who refuse to believe their hero could be a monster. Death threats against you, against your family. You'll spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder just like I did. Marcus met his gaze steadily. The difference is, I'll be looking over my shoulder because I told the truth. You spent 15 years running from it. As the procession moved upward, Marcus lingered in the basement, surrounded by the scattered evidence of 12 murders and one man's monstrous double life. He thought about Tommy's voice on that last phone call, bright with excitement about meeting Jackie Chan. The boy had died believing in heroes. But maybe that was enough. Maybe the belief itself, pure, innocent, untainted by the monster who had exploited it, was worth preserving. Not the false idol that Chen Wei-ming had created, but the very human need to believe that somewhere in the darkness, real heroes existed. Marcus climbed the stairs toward the light above, carrying 15 years of grief and rage, and finally, something that felt remarkably like peace. The truth had set them all free. 3 months later, Marcus stood in his gym as dawn filtered through windows that had been replaced after the gas leak. The space looked different now, cleaner, brighter, with new equipment donated by families whose questions had finally been answered. Tommy's photograph still hung by the heavy bag, but it was surrounded now by 11 others. Young faces smiling with the confidence that comes from believing the world is fundamentally good. The morning news played quietly in the background, reporters still dissecting the aftermath of what media had dubbed the Jackie Chan scandal. Chen Wei-ming's trial dominated headlines across Asia, each revelation more damning than the last. The entertainment industry was in upheaval, studios scrambling to distance themselves from decades of films now tainted by association with a killer. Conspiracy theorists filled internet forums, but their desperate theories couldn't withstand the mountain of evidence Liu had preserved. Marcus barely watched anymore. The story belonged to the world now. He wrapped his hands slowly, methodically, the ritual as familiar as breathing. His knuckles were stiffer these days, arthritis setting in after 40 years of boxing, but the motion brought him peace. Sarah had asked him once, during one of her follow-up interviews, if he missed the simplicity of his old life, the time when his greatest concern was keeping the gym solvent and his biggest mystery was why Tommy's death still haunted him. He'd thought about it seriously before answering. The truth was messier than silence, more complicated than grief, but it was also lighter somehow, as if the weight he'd carried for 15 years had been distributed across thousands of shoulders, shared by everyone who needed to believe that justice, however delayed, was still possible. The front door chimed, and Mrs. Chen entered, not the killer's family, but Tommy's mother, who had started visiting the gym weekly after learning the truth about her son's death. She brought flowers for the memorial wall and stories about the granddaughter Tommy would never meet. "Good morning, Mr. Marcus," she said in careful English, setting fresh chrysanthemums beneath her son's photograph. "I brought tea." They sat together in comfortable silence, two people who had learned that some conversations were too important for words. Mrs. Chen had forgiven him for the secrets he'd kept, understanding finally that his silence had been born of love, not indifference. She'd also forgiven Liu, who visited sometimes to tell her about her son's final days. How proud Tommy had been, how excited about his future. "The reporter lady called," Mrs. Chen said eventually. "She wants to do another interview." Marcus nodded. Sarah had won 3 journalism awards for her coverage of the scandal, but she kept returning to the human stories. The families finally able to grieve properly, the young fighters inspired by Tommy's courage, the way truth could transform even the darkest revelations into something resembling hope. "Will you talk to her?" "Maybe," Marcus said, "but not about him. I'm tired of giving that monster more attention than he deserves." Mrs. Chen smiled, understanding. She'd refused all interview requests about her son's killer, preferring to speak only about Tommy, his dreams, his kindness, the way he'd believed the world was full of heroes worth emulating. After she left, Marcus resumed his training routine, each movement a meditation on the distance between who he'd been and who he was becoming. The gym filled gradually with students, some old-timers who'd stuck with him through the scandal, others drawn by the story's strange transformation from tragedy to redemption. Detective Liu stopped by around noon, as he did most days now. His brother's trial would begin next month, and the stress showed in his graying hair, the shadows under his eyes. But there was something lighter about him, too, the relief of a man no longer carrying secrets that could destroy lives. "How are you holding up?" Marcus asked, toweling off after an hour with the speed bag. "Some days better than others," Lou admitted. "But I sleep now, really sleep, for the first time in 15 years. They watched the afternoon training session together, young fighters practicing combinations with the intensity that only came from believing their efforts mattered. Marcus found himself thinking about legacy, not the false immortality of celebrity, but the quiet continuance of values passed from one generation to the next. As evening settled over Hong Kong, Marcus turned off the lights and locked the gym. The streets were busy with their usual chaos of neon and noise, but the city felt different to him now, less like a place where monsters could hide in plain sight, more like home. He thought about Tommy often, but the memories no longer carried the crushing weight of failure. The boy had died believing in heroes, and maybe that belief had been justified after all, not in the manufactured perfection of movie stars, but in the ordinary courage of people who chose truth over comfort, justice over silence. Walking home through streets that sparkled with promise and possibility, Marcus carried with him the hard-won knowledge that some stories, no matter how dark their beginnings, could still end in light. The truth had indeed set them all free.